that music is just so jazzy. It gets me all excited. And I couldn't be more excited because it is time for our final session of the day. And we are closing out with some of the best because we've, of course, saved the best for last for all of you. And we have two incredible sessions lined up to close out this year's summit. But before we get to those, you all know the drill at this point. It is time for a polling question. And for this poll, we want to know, which area do you want to grow in most? And for those of you that are in the federal government, you might notice that these are aligned to the Office of Personnel Management's ECQs, or Executive Core Qualifications. And we're just curious, what area of your development do you really want to kind of take another stab at or lean into a little bit more as you continue to develop in your role and expertise? And while you take that poll, I want to remind you of a couple of things. I mentioned it on the lunch keynotes, but we are opening up our Next Gen Public Service Awards right now. So if you have a wonderful colleague that you would like to nominate, head over to the Resource Center in this console, click that link and nominate one of your colleagues, because you all do incredible work and you've got incredible stories to share, and we want to know what those are. So get your nominations in early and often. All of the same other housekeeping from the rest of the day is also things we're looking at for today. So if you want to tweet alongside us using the hashtag NextGenGov, please do so. If you've got a question, throw it into the Q&A portal because we want to answer your questions. You can also chat along with us in the attendee chat, and we'd love to see you there. If you need the closed captioning, look for where my face is showing up right now. The bottom right-hand side of that is where you will find the closed captioning. And of course, like with all the sessions today, we are going to be sending you a link to the entire environment tomorrow, so you can check in on any of the sessions you may have missed, download resources, and of course, fill out any CPE certificate that you may or may not need. All right, terrific. With those housekeeping notes out of the way, let's get the results of the poll. And oh my goodness, we are across the board going to be taking a look at leadership and development training as we go, but topping out the list is leading change. And when are things not changing? Never. So I think that is definitely something that we can all relate to. Speaking of change, our closing keynote panel here is looking at unconventional paths in government. And I think for a lot of us, I don't know if you might be guilty of this yourself, but you perhaps went into college thinking that you were going to be a foreign correspondent to Spain, and you got a degree in journalism and Spanish. And then perhaps coming out of college, you realized that's not a job. That was my trajectory, and it might be the trajectory of some other folks on here as well, that the path that you thought you were going to be taking in college is not necessarily the path that you ended up on, for good or bad. And here to tell us about their unconventional paths is our wonderful panel. Joining us up first, we have Allison Wise. She is the Deputy Director of the Office of Minority and Women Inclusion for the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. We also have Nathan Sanfilippo, who is the Executive Director for Multi-Channel Technology at the Veterans Experience Office. Joining those two, we've got Lisa Jammer, who's the Chief People and Culture Office for the state of Texas. We also have Harrison Smith, who's the Director of Enterprise Digitalization for the Internal Revenue Service. And last but certainly not least, we've got Amy Edwards-Holm, who's the Executive Director for the Bloomberg Center for Government Excellence at Johns Hopkins University. We have assembled a genius panel here, and I am going to, by way of introduction, have each of them tell us a little bit about themselves. And Lisa, I'm going to start with you. Tell me what your college degree is in, and tell me if that matches up to the job you're doing now.
Certainly. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lisa Jammer, and I have an undergraduate degree in business management and a master's degree in human resource development. while I still use some of the skills I earned from both of my degrees, the reality is I also use a host of skills that I've had to gain on my own through professional development, through transferable skills through projects and
Mhm.
taking on outside opportunities. So some of the things I did use from my degree and still continue to use are things like leading and executing talent development, talent management, and performance strategies at my agency. But then there are things like strategic planning and navigating a state government office that I've had to learn on my own.
I love it. So a little bit you used and some more you got along the way. We love to see it. Harrison, how about you? What does your path look like?
Slightly more convoluted, I think I'll go with. I got 2 degrees. One was in international relations with a focus on Russia and the Middle East. And the other one was a master's in U.S. foreign policy with a focus on the 1972 anti-ballistic missile treaty between the United States and the Soviet Union. That has very little to do with my current job, with the exception of a handful of courses on focus on conflict mediation and resolution that I had. So that pretty much applies to my job today. But not doing an analysis of Russian language documents, and not perusing the historical backgrounds of conflict and interactions in the Middle East either. So pretty different.
I hear you. All right, Amy, how about you? What was your degree in, and does it match to what you're doing now?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me again, Amy Edwards Holmes. So I would say that looking at the start of my career forward, it didn't make sense. But looking back, I can see a thread that connects it all. So I'll start with my undergraduate studies were focused on social work and criminal justice. And so fast forward to my latest career steps at Johns Hopkins, I lead a center, the Bloomberg Center for Government Excellence, that's working to build data capacity and skills in the public sector. And before that, I was overseeing financial operations and data management at the Treasury Department. So social work to data and finance may not seem like a natural link, but I can see a very important thread throughout my career that I think is noteworthy. And first is, I started off thinking I wanted to be in social work. I'm the first generation college student in my family. And I was like, I want to help people. And so the only thing I really knew to pursue was social work. I'm like, social workers help people, so I want to do that. And so I began working at a very small Head Start center in a rural county, very poor. And I saw firsthand and worked with families and children to try to improve their lives, provide services to meet their needs. And what I saw very clearly was that there were gaps left on the table where the program was very well intended and trying to help the community and the residents, but it wasn't designed with their input. And it also wasn't kind of meeting all their needs. And so while I was working at that small little center in the middle of nowhere, just trying to do good, I met a team of program evaluators who came from the federal government, from the Department of Health and Human Services, and they were evaluating our work and collecting data. And I was like, I had no idea that was someone's job. And I was like, that's the job I want to do. And so I kind of pivoted in my career and came to Washington, dug in, started learning more about how data could improve the outcomes for the people that we want to serve in government. And I've been in public service and nonprofit and in the public sector, the government for over 20 years. And that data lens and helping people is the throughput through my career. But you wouldn't have thought that coming from a social work. Then I pursued some graduate studies in public administration and management that make more sense. But that thread of data to help people improve government outcomes is a thread throughout my career.
Okay, I love it. I love it. Nathan, tell us about your degree and where you are now.
Sure. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Nathan Sanfilippo. Definitely not using, at least most directly, my degree. My bachelor's degree is in material science and engineering. And more specifically in ceramic engineering as a specialization. So, currently at the Department of Veterans Affairs, I lead Customer Experience Technology Organization. So definitely not related. Prior to being at VA, just the past 2 years or so, I spent almost 20 years at the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, where I was doing science and engineering work, but never work related to my discipline. Certainly more just sort of generic sort of engineering and technical work. I will say, maybe about 15 years into my career, I got my master's degree in public administration. And certainly that I am using now. And, certainly I think that's a plug for, a positive plug for doing graduate studies, after you've spent some time in your career. So you kind of figure out where you want to go and where that education will kind of, help you as you sort of guide your career in whatever direction it happens to go. But it is always an interesting story and explaining to people, how I find myself at the Department of Veterans Affairs leading customer experience technology, given my engineering and nuclear past. So definitely far afield.
Very cool. And last but certainly not least, Allison, talk to us about your career trajectory from school to where you are now.
Yeah, thanks, Emily, and good afternoon, everyone. This is Allison Wise, and like Amy, I too am a first-generation college student and majored in business and finance, and currently working in the field of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I would say that diversity, equity, and inclusion chose me. I didn't choose it. And it was working I was working in an EEO office while I was in school. And it really sort of changed the whole trajectory of my career. I never saw a career in public service because I thought I was going to get rich working on Wall Street and be some investment banker. But, one of my supervisors really just saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and really encouraged me to stay in this field. And she saw some talents there. And that's where my passion was ignited for DEI, as we call it, and really just staying open to that. And, been in public service for the past 30 plus years, and wouldn't change it for anything. I think that I'm definitely more aligned with where my talents, skills, and abilities are, and my passions, definitely. So for that, I am really grateful that I had a supervisor who really saw that in me and was able to talk to me about something else that was available. But until recently, working at the SEC, I've had a full circle moment where now I'm kind of leveraging that finance degree with my love for DEI. And prior to that, I really didn't have any alignment with my degree.
All right. Well, a few of our attendees are also putting in their journeys. And if you haven't yet and you want to share, we want to know about what you thought you were going to be when you grew up or when you were in college. If we go into the way, way back machine, I really wanted to be a cleaning lady when I was a kid. And I will be honest, I still love to clean to this day. So that has held true. All right. I've got a whole list of questions for our panel of experts, but I do want to encourage our audience to throw your questions into the Q&A portal or the chat as well, because we want to hear from you. But Allison, you went last the first time, so you get to go first this time. What has been the most surprising or maybe biggest surprise in your career that you weren't expecting?
Well, I kind of alluded to this just in the previous, that I actually wasn't expecting ever really being able to leverage my love of finance as well as my passion for DEI. And it wasn't until recently that I actually landed the position as the deputy director at the SEC. And so if I would have really thought about my early career and thinking just, putting those things aside and not really thinking that I could have it all. That was very surprising to me that this opportunity came about. And so I I think just really staying open and not losing sight of those things that you love, and really just being able to visualize something before it was actually even actualized.
I love that. All right, Lisa, Heidi asked in our Q&A portal, she says, what is the single most transformative moment that you overcome and or stands out in your career? What moment or moments really helped transform your journey?
Sure. So I started out as an accountant, which you will not find in my social media because I had to rebrand myself. Um, and so walked into accounting with starry eyes and dreams of becoming like a director of accounting and later a CFO. And much like Allison, my career found me. And I was much more inclined to support people in what I did. And that was a surprise to me. But one of the bigger surprises was I didn't know where to start. So things that I had to overcome was overall figuring out, how do I even get started? What do I do? And that led to exploratory calls with professionals who might be doing something I'm interested in. Also, went through a number of career assessments, and there's some great free ones out there that are worth going through and looking at your own motivators, your values, your interests, career interests, and looking for opportunities to transition your career. And then I identified people to support me. So I got some stakeholders on board to support my efforts and to pour into my journey, and that helped with my transition over into the human resources function.
Very cool. All right, Harrison, Gilberto asked, what is the most rewarding aspect of working in the public sector for you? So what has kept you in government and keeps you motivated to keep going?
Well, that's a really good question and a really hard question, because I think there are a lot of things. But I think if I had to distill it down into sort of a common theme, a common thread, is the ability to have an impact on how the system functions. The perspectives of Lisa and Allison, especially around the importance of people and DEI, I find it most that really resonates with me, and I find it most energizing, most exciting when you can break down what the systems are trying to do, the people that they're trying, the people in the groups that they're trying to benefit, and to Amy's point, how do you make sure that they're involved, right? Whether or not that's from human-centered design, whether or not that's from outcome-based, really being able to see the outcome of your work and your efforts in a way that improves the system, how it functions, and who it's designed to benefit. Because ultimately that's what we're here for. We're here to help optimize the systems that are supposed to benefit people and missions and groups. And anytime I get to do that, it's really, really exciting, and it's a really, really good day.
Well, I hope you have lots of good days, because that is a wonderful takeaway. All right, so Nathan, Chris asked, what advancement pathways did you utilize during your career to gain exposure to other agencies or your current agency? You talked about bouncing around from a couple different places. Did you use any programs or anything in that realm?
So yes, on two fronts. Like I said, I spent about 19 years at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and certainly have wonderful things to say about that organization and the way that they develop their staff and leadership, and had the opportunity to complete a number of competitive leadership programs where, of course, you have to apply and be selected, but those were internal programs to the agency. But I will say that the big transition point of my career was branching out and reaching out beyond my agency's doors. In 2017, I was selected to the White House Leadership Development Program, which is a program available to career federal government employees across all of government, to bring them into OMB, GSA, the center of government, to learn about how to solve tricky government-wide challenges and problems. And I was fortunate enough to be selected to that program, and that was really the moment that transitioned my career from being a sort of a science public policy expert to the executive role that I find myself in now at VA. I was thrown into a field an initiative to lead as part of the White House Leadership Development Program, was asked to lead government-wide customer experience work. I knew absolutely nothing about customer experience. That was the point of being thrown in. And through the work that I did, the relationships that I made, and just sort of the passion that I felt around it, it's where I find myself now today, a number of years later. So, I think a thread throughout my career certainly is, trying something new, doing something you don't think is related to what you're doing, because the more you understand about how your agency works, how your company works, how they interact with other agencies and companies, how the broader government works, the more context you have, the more that, the more success I think you can find. And certainly those developmental programs that get you outside of your sort of normal environment are hugely impactful. And I think people are even more so these days recognizing them on resumes and valuing that diverse experience.
Definitely. So, Amy, a bunch of people are relating to you and Allison being sort of first generation college graduates and entering into a workforce that may look a little bit different than previous generations did. I'm curious if you could go back in your career and talk to young Amy, is there anything that you would either tell her or that you would do a little bit differently that might help our attendees?
Yeah, great question. Well, I mean, I think for me, relationships and developing partnerships and friendships professionally has been just, an important part of my career journey. And, without trust and colleagues, you can't do big things. And so I think that building those relationships has really been fundamental to me throughout my career. In fact, a friend who knew me well, knew my ambitions, is the one who put me in contact with a big pivotal role in my career, which took me out of the sidelines of government, working in think tanks, working to do research. I was at the Pew Charitable Trust doing really, I thought, phenomenal work, and I was very content. And they sent me an article and was like, hey, there's the Senate Budget Committee is creating a task force on government performance. Data nerd, this sounds like you. And I was like, I wonder what that's about. And I took a chance and was like, well, I'll just send them my resume. It'll be, how interesting. I'm curious what that is. And I just long shot, just sent it in. And the next thing you know, that changed my career in a big way. And I was leading that work directly for 6 years, a huge bipartisan task force to get Congress to use data. And it led to all these reforms and a whole array of things. But it was my peer group and my colleagues and my partners. And even when I was in government, having external partners and organizations help, those allies who want to see change, who want to see reform, who you can partner with. And I even found partners in unlikely places, even with the audit community, who they were trying to, I valued that oversight at most of the time. And I found it was helpful to identify our issues and work through them. And it was all in the spirit of trying to deliver better services to the public, which was always my focus and my values, and sticking to those values. So I think the networks that you can make across your career, you'll be surprised how they can carry you forward. And so that would be my biggest lesson that I've learned, that I would want others to also take advantage of.
I think that is great advice. And that leads really well into another question that we got into our Q&A portal. So Allison, this one's for you. You and Amy both mentioned that you're the first in your family to attend college. Many folks, though, aren't aware about the different types and diversity of jobs that are available within the government. So what advice do you have for that next generation, those Gen Zers and beyond, who we need to enter into the workforce, or perhaps those of us who are already in government looking for that next role? What is your advice for locating jobs within government and really figuring out sort of the breadth of the opportunities?
Yeah, what a great question. And I think a lot of people don't even understand public service and what it has to offer, and that we are a consortium of private companies almost, but and you can move from agency to agency and really have a diversity of careers. the biggest thing and that I could share with the audience today is at reaching out to do informational interviews and connecting with people on LinkedIn. And I am really big in my office now. We do a lot of outreach to college students and who just are not aware of some of the things, but they're also first gen and can't have those conversations sort of in their household. So they have to do a lot more to sort of reach out and as Amy said, leverage a network that may not exist right away. But I think making some connections to be able to do some informational interviews and stay in this space of curiosity and really being able to be proactive and saying, that's something interesting that I would really like to do. What will put me in those spaces to be able to talk to people about what their career has been like. And so I think that's the most important thing is to really be able to be curious about it, do some research. Every federal agency has a website and points of contact and people to reach out to. And those are the resources that are available for people who want to find out more about amazing careers in public service.
I love it. All right, we are rapidly running through this panel. So I am going to ask the next question to a few of you, and then we're going to move on to the lightning round. Lisa, this question's for you, and I want super tactical answers here. What advice do you have for government employees who are either early or mid in their career and are looking for a long tenure of government service?
So if you're early in your career, there's several things. I tell people who just joined government to read the First 90 Days book, and there is one for government that it differs a little bit from the private sector. It's a great book when you're looking for a blueprint to navigate government. There are really good strategic plans in there, assessments, but things to help you with a recipe for success. For those of you who are mid-career and you are looking to determine how to navigate government, but also maybe you're a career changer in government, I will tell you, check out a few resources. One of those is a book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There by Marshall Goldsmith. And another is called The Pathfinder. It's how to choose and change your career for a lifetime. Those are two great books, in addition to doing some assessments and getting involved in government associations so that you can expand your network and continue to build your skill set.
Love it. All right, Harrison, what tactical advice do you have for our attendees today?
So I would just echo some of what Lisa and also Nathan mentioned earlier about the developmental programs. I think they give you an opportunity to have a lot more structure and a lot more consistency in how you are engaging with different individuals and how you are engaging with different agencies and how, frankly, you're able to expand your network. I think there's certainly a lot to be said for programs like I did the presidential management internship back in the day. I think there's a lot to be said for developmental programs that allow you to engage with industry partners as well. ACT-IAC has some, NCMA has some, there's quite a few around. But that opportunity to frankly take the variables out of your hands, right? Because it's one thing for you to say, oh, I'll reach out and I'll do that informational interview next week, or I'll do that training next quarter. If you're in a program and you're in the structure, it helps you have fewer excuses and fewer things to find to interrupt that. So absolutely find those programs. They're there for GS7s, they're there for GS14s, they're there for aspiring SCSs. Take advantage of those opportunities. It allows you to learn, gives you things to really aim for, and really helps expand your network. That's what I would do.
I love it. All right. Allison, nope, I'm sorry, I lied. Nathan, I'm going to come to you first for this one. Tell me if you had any mentorship experience and how that changed your perspective in government.
Absolutely, 100%. Both sort of formal mentorship through mentoring programs where you get kind of matched with somebody. Also, tons of informal mentorship, and I think the theme that I would share, right, and as I've mentioned a couple times, is getting sort of outside of your normal sphere of influence or space, even in my role, my current role at VA, I'm still new to VA. I'm trying to learn about, VA is 430,000 people. I'm trying to learn about all of the functions. How can I do that? Well, seek out mentors, people that, that you can be connected to understand, and just go have, periodic coffee conversation. What's their world like? What influences are on them? How do they make decisions? The more you can just gather that context, and I love doing it through mentors because it's more of that sort of one-on-one. Yes, training's great. Yes, sitting through a class gives you a lot of information. The most, in my view, the most useful, comes from the interaction with people that are actually doing those jobs, right? And particularly in the context, and and sometimes it may be daunting to say, well, I don't know anybody that works at that agency, or I don't know anybody in that function. That's where the, reaching out to your network, a trusted boss or a person in your organization that you would like to, talk to them and say, hey, do you know anybody at NASA? Do you know anybody at the White House? Do you know any, and through those networks, you can, I would say, very surprisingly get connected to just about anybody that you'd be interested in being connected to. And mentorship plays a key role, and has played a key role in my development.
I love that. All right. I have so many questions for our panelists, but unfortunately, we are rapidly running out of time. So I have a final question for each one of you. And Amy, I'm going to start with you with this question. What is your one piece of advice that you have for attendees? And if you could impart that advice, what is one reason that you feel that public sector is a wonderful place to work?
Okay, two-parter. Well, I think since I know we're short on time, I'll be quick. I think one of the most important things you could do to strengthen your career is to build strong communication skills. I just, early in my career, I became a spokesperson, and I had people invest in me. They sent me to training. They videotaped me. They helped me hone how to deliver a message in a clear, concise way. I did speech writing, and that was very helpful with that for a while. But it really helped me. If you can't convey why your skills, your abilities, your business, your projects, your programs, if you can't convey that well to an audience, it's going to hold you back. And leaders have to have that communications presence and skills that I think is really valuable. So that's one thing I do with my whole team, and I've always thought is really valuable, is to develop and hone that, practice that, get really sharp and good at your communication skills. And I think those are really important to bring people into the public sector. I think, like many of the colleagues on the stage here, you can do big things in the public sector. You can change people's lives, and we see it every day. And that's why, I have never left the public space, although I'm doing it now. I'm working more with mayors and more local government leaders today, but I'm still very connected to the people and to making progress. And there's a unique opportunity in the public sector to do that. Whether you want to be an accountant, you want to be a data engineer, you want to work on AI, or you want to, do many things in finance, other areas, it's all there in the public sector. Reach out to us. I have found in my career, people reach out to me, and people love to talk about themselves. So when people reach out and they're like, oh, your career's so fascinating. Could I Zoom you for 15 minutes? And you know what? They'll do it. And they're happy to do it. And so many people did that for me and gave me insights that I do it back. You have to give back and bring new people and new talent into the public sector. And that's what today's panel is about. And thank you for having me. And I'll stop now. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Amy. And fun fact, do you know the Navy actually has a dolphin trainer? You can literally do anything in government. So I think that's really important. Harrison, what is your piece of advice you want to leave our attendees with? And what is your call to action for public sector?
Absolutely. So I will give the same advice that I got quite a few years ago from a mentor who said, you've got to have a bookshelf. And I said, what's a bookshelf? He said, you've got to have a place where you have your ideas, where you have your paths forward, where you have your career changes, where it's documented, where it's written down so that you don't lose sight of them. Because frequently when somebody says no, whether or not it's you or whether or not it's somebody else, what it really means is not right now. And your goal and your opportunity is to find the what's the right now time for those ideas that you've probably got, many of you probably have just bouncing around your head. Write it down. To Amy's point, be ready to communicate it and be ready to take advantage of it when the opportunity presents itself. Hearing no as not right now is absolutely a superpower in this space. And in terms of really the call action in the public sector, it's fairly similar to what I said earlier. You have such a massive opportunity to learn and grow every day. You have the opportunity to affect positive change in your colleagues, in the individuals who live and are surrounded by. It really is unmatched in terms of our ability to improve things for the people that we support and the communities that we really reside within. It really is unmatched. Thanks so much for having me.
No, thank you. All right, Lisa, over to you. Piece of advice and what public sector means to you.
Absolutely. I'm going to start with what public sector means to me. And I've gone on both sides of things. I've been on the private and the public sector side, and I have confidently come back over to the side where I'll reside. For me, it's about being able to make change in state government and being able to change it for the people around me. And I'm able to do that as a people and culture officer. My piece of advice is to step back from the application process and get to know yourself. So many people spend long hours applying for jobs, but they never step back to understand their own needs, their own interests, their own motivators, and their core values before starting the job search. As a people and cultural professional, one key skill that I am seeking is the ability to be nimble and change quickly. Much of that ability lies within your mindset, and more importantly, having a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. A growth mindset allows you to be able to take on challenges as they arise, learn from them, and therefore increase your knowledge, skills, abilities, and achievements. These are all key skills to drive change and innovation in government. So thank you so much for having me today. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I would love to support you in your career efforts.
Look at that. You are going to get bombarded with LinkedIn updates, I am sure. Thank you so much, Lisa. We have our second poll question up. So while Nathan is answering the question with his piece of advice and what public sector means to him, don't forget to answer your poll question. But Nathan, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I think my piece of advice would be, from a very tactical perspective, do everything you can to learn about how not only your agency or your company or wherever you are, how they make decisions and how things kind of come down from the top. For, early in my career, the decisions that came down from above, where there's this magical black box and that decisions came out of, right? And you have no way to influence them if you don't understand the process by which they're made. And, it was a real turning point in my career once I started to, proactively seek out and try to understand how they were made, but then also others, sort of including me in that process. And I would say, there's a whole lot about government that's quirky and unique and rules and bureaucracy, right? And the more that you can understand it and figure out how to make it work for you, and there's a lot of course, sort of red tape and bureaucratic rules, but there's a lot of those things that can really help you too if you understand them and how to use them. And I think just it's a little wonky, but getting a better understanding of how, decisions are made and all of that fits together, I think has really served me well. And I think is something that would benefit everyone. Public service has been, a career long, it's been my whole career. It wasn't something that I thought I would be doing right out of college, but it's where I ended up, and I'm so glad that I did. The biggest thing that struck me was when I was working at OMB on government-wide customer experience work, and I got to visit 30 different agencies and learn about services that they were providing to the public in one form or another. And one day it's the IRS, right? A service that, everyone participates in, but maybe isn't so excited about. The next day it's the National Park Service with visiting national parks, right? People going on vacation, having, wonderful experiences interacting with government, and, everything in between, like TSA and, national forests and of course, where I am now, the Department of Veterans Affairs and serving, our nation's veteran community, all of these different things. To your point, there are so many different missions. You can kind of find yourself in just about anywhere, whether it's security, public service, health and well-being, It's just like there's an amazing mission sort of around every corner in government. So it's a little tricky sometimes to find them, and admittedly we don't make it the easiest, but it's really, I think, a great place to be and a great opportunity to have an impact on people's lives.
I love that. All right, Allison, you've got hands down the hardest job here, because you have to come up with a piece of advice that your fellow panelists haven't said. But give me your piece of advice and tell me what public sector means to you.
Yeah, well, let me just start with public service, because I've had an amazing career that if I look back, I could not have imagined the rooms that I would have been in and the impact that my work has been able to have. So being able to weigh in on the executive order for DEIA that was actually signed by the president, and those kinds of things, that being a part of some amazing missions all across government and meeting people. So just really quick, one of the best pieces of advice that I ever received was, everyone you meet knows something that you don't know, and your job is to find out what it is. So in terms of really expanding your network and meeting people and getting into rooms that you typically wouldn't be in, and something really tactical that folks can do in getting involved in their agency is taking an opportunity to learn something new, getting involved in an employee affinity group, and taking a leadership role. And that creates visibility, learning of new skills, and creating new things that you can put on your resume that will add to whatever it is that you are doing.
I love that. And that is a terrific way to end us. So thank you, Allison. And thank you to our wonderful panelists for sharing your unconventional journeys with us. It definitely makes me feel a little bit better about the fact that I'm not a foreign correspondent to Spain, because, well, we can all be different roles and responsibilities at different times. And maybe my chance is still around the corner. You never know. But thank you all so very much for sharing your insights with us. We have one final keynote that is going to close out today, and I think it fits really well in what we were just talking about, because there is so much passion for public sector and the incredible work that you all do, but sometimes finding it amongst the bureaucracy can be a little bit challenging. So here to close us out to talk about how to find the passion in your work is Bo Pixmiller. He is a certified club manager and past president of Club Managers Associations of America with the Greater Michigan chapter. Bo, thank you so much for being here and for closing out our summit today. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to you.
Thanks, Emily. It's great to be here. And what a distinguished panel to follow of accomplished individuals who really gave and provide some good counsel. It kind of reminds me of my journey and my work, that sometimes we start out thinking we're going to do one thing and we end up doing another. Just a little bit about myself. I was born in Appalachia, spent the first part of my life there, and ended up managing country clubs. What a departure that ended up being. And the thing I liked about club management was every day was something different. I had not been good in school when I was a younger person, and actually struggled and found my way along despite my tendencies to not work at that point in my life and not be interested and passionate about study. And I'll share with you a little bit about the journey that I came to, where I discovered something about my passion. I came upon what I call a formula I call the 3 Ps as I began managing clubs. And the formula was this: passion and purpose combined equal performance. We can have passion and get some things done. We can have some purpose and accomplish things. But when those two are combined, they become the dynamic duo and become something totally different. That's where we get the real elevated performance. Along the way, as I worked with my teams, and I have to look back on it, and as I look at my career and realize and recognize that the success that I experienced, I was really a turnaround guy. I turned every club I worked at over my 33 years as a general manager around financially, but also culturally. And all the success that I experienced came from my team being able to be engaged and notch it up a level in performance. And one of the things I learned along the way was that there were things that each of us enjoyed doing. There were things that we were inherently good at because of the gift of what we were blessed with. But then there was also the things that we developed as far as skills. But where we found the great performances was when we had found passion and we backed it with purpose. I would often be asking along in my career, being a club manager, you might think of it as something like Caddyshack, and there was some of that in it, but it was a tough job. The average tenure of a GM was 2 to 3 years in the industry, and I was fortunate enough to have much longer tenures in several of my clubs. And members would often ask me why I did what I did. And I think they looked at my job as one that they surely wouldn't want to take on. And in my younger years, I was asked that question quite often. In later years, I noticed that people quit asking me that question. They probably, the reason for that was they probably decided that, gee, this guy should have figured it out by now and know better. But as I came to the end of my day-to-day management career, they began asking another question that was quite the opposite. And they would, once I had announced my retirement, then I was stepping away from that club, they had a number of members come to me and say, why now, Bo? You've got gas left in the tank. You're at the height of your career, compensation-wise, and my benefit package was great. Why? And I was on Easy Street as far as the club I was managing at that point, in that we had things set up the way it needed to be. My response to the why was, I shared with them that for a long time, many years, I'd done something that I was pretty good at. But for the rest of my life, I wanted to do a couple of things that I had learned that I loved. One of those is speaking, which I'm doing with you today. The other is writing. And so just as I finished up my career, I wrote a book. And I knew what the title was going to be all along. But as I wrote the book of my stories, I came to realize that there were a number of books by the same title. You can go out on Amazon and Google and find it. But the title of my book's The Sweet Spot, but the subtitle is how I differentiate myself and my message. It's the moments that can transform an ordinary life into an extraordinary experience. I want to share a story from that book. It's in a chapter titled, What's Love Got to Do with It? And it was a process where I came to understand my passions more. I was having lunch with my two youngest daughters one day. And, you know, those of you that are parents understand this. As your children move into their teen years, they become much more knowledgeable, and you become less and less knowledgeable to a point to where you arrive at that stage where you know almost absolutely nothing. And so you have to look for the opportunities to share, right? And so on this particular occasion, I had the opening to have some conversation that I thought needed to be had. And I asked the girls, do you think your dad really loves his job? It was a question that I thought I knew the answer to, and I was pretty sure they didn't. My next youngest daughter immediately responded and said, oh yeah, Dad, you love your job. Well, I could understand why she thought that, because I put in a lot of hours, evenings, weekends, holidays. So that didn't surprise me. And I asked her a follow-up question, and that was why she might have thought that I did. And her answer again was very quick in the response. And she said, well, Dad, you just love telling people what to do. Every parent understands that, and I could have expected that comment from their child. You know, I left that conversation that day. I had shared with them in concluding that interaction that I had decided early in my career that I wanted to be the one doing the telling rather than the one being told. And that my job was just something that I did to help provide for the family. It wasn't the love of my life that they may have thought it was. And I left that conversation feeling somewhat smug that I had answered a question and helped them understand something they needed to know. But there was a gnawing uneasiness as in the weeks and months that followed. And as I searched for that, what the root of that, I found that there was another question that needed to be answered. If I didn't love my job, if I didn't love my work, how had I been able to be so successful for so many years doing that thing? And that took me on a journey that I thought would take a few hours, but it actually took over a year to come up and search out and come to understand what was really there that I loved about my work. And I was looking for something more than just the things that I liked or could do well. I was looking for what I really loved. And I came to understand at the end of that journey that there were 8 things that were really drivers for me. And I call them my crazy 8s. I'm going to tell you about one of those in a moment, but I would suggest to you that you have those too, and you may have 8, you may have 10, you may have 20, you may have 2. It's not important how many you have. It is important to understand what they are and how you can use them. That conversation is one that I wish I would have had in my 20s instead of when I was in my 50s. I won't go into all my 8 right now because of time, but just let me share number 8, because I think it's, for me, the one that's most, I'm most close to. Number 8 is, I love the journey of better understanding self in the process of becoming better. When I was at my last stop on my career journey, I had a sous chef whose name was Ben, but our executive chef was also named Ben. So my sous chef had given himself the name Kingsley. It sounded kind of like a chef, right? And so as I would walk through the kitchen on many times during the day, I would occasionally find Kingsley working and it not being terribly busy. And I would pause and we'd have some conversation. Kingsley's dad had been a minister and I have some faith background. And so sometimes we would talk about religion and we'd talk about that other thing that you never talk about, politics, because Kingsley is quite a bit younger than me. And you can imagine that we had some different thoughts about different things, but we also would delve into the philosophies of men. And one day Kingsley asked me a question, and the question was this. I think he asked it kind of rhetorically, but he said, "Bo, can you tell me in one word, yes, one word, what the purpose of life is?" Wow. As I thought on that for just a moment, I said, "You know, Ben, Kingsley, I can't do that with one word. I mean, some people might try and come up with love or peace or happiness or whatever, but I said I can do it with 2. I think I can do it with 2, and my 2 would be become better. In this life, we all come into this world, in this existence, with different qualities, different personalities. And I believe that there's a core part of ourselves that's just there that causes us to act and behave and function in a certain way. We have default switches that are really there and we don't even know it. It's why sometimes when your anger boils, you're not wanting that to happen, but it just happens. Or when you're overly patient, where you shouldn't be, it just happens. That's because your basic core self, that's who you are. And but the thing is, even though we all come in one way, at the end of the day, at the end of our life, what we want to do is come out in a different way, a better way. I was not good in school. The individuals on the panel were quite accomplished in their education and schooling. I just wasn't. Our English teacher, when I was a freshman in high school, trying to get us excited about literature, thought a field trip to watch a movie that had just been released might be just a trick to do it. And the movie she took us to see in the theater was the 1968 adaptation of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. Well, Leonard Whiting played Romeo in that movie, and Olivia Hussey played Juliet. She was a great Juliet. Talk about passion being unleashed. I was feeling it, not for Shakespeare, Juliet. And but later on, I came to understand and appreciate that guy, Shakespeare. He had something going on. And one of the quotes and lines in one of his plays that always stuck with me is, the one about that reads something like this: all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. It is so true. We're all on stage every day. We get up in the morning and we put on a suit. It's not a suit with a coat and tie. It's a suit of how we want others to see us and think about us and interact with us. We're playing a role, and we're choosing that role. And the question is, for each of us is, and I would ask you that today, what role are you playing? Are you walking through life finding yourself engaging in passion? Or are you walking through life just marking time? If you're doing that, I would suggest that you need to stop and give some thought. The challenge I would give for you today, and the thing that I would have you understand, if you don't remember anything else that I've said and shared with you, is this. If there's something in your life that you don't like, if you're not really completely happy with where you're at, really give it some thought and look into going through a process of better understanding where your passions lie, because it's there that you'll find where you'll get the most enjoyment and satisfaction. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in your work. It can be in your personal life, in hobbies or interest or however you want to pursue it. But understanding it is important. And the thing is this, if there's something there that you don't like or you don't want, if you want to change, that can all start tomorrow. You don't have to stay where you're at. You don't have to, I think it was Henry David Thoreau that said, the masses of men live lives of quiet desperation. I think too many people are experiencing that because they've not found their passion. They've not found what they can really be excited and thrilled about. And so I challenge you to go on that journey, the same one that I did, and seek out what your passions are. Life is truly about the moments. I hope that you find yours ones at the end as you go through life. Moments that just aren't ordinary, and your life that isn't just ordinary, but extraordinary. Appreciate you having me with the program today and enjoyed being here.
Well, we enjoyed having you both. So thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. And I think a lot of folks are agreeing with you that that was a good movie. I'm going to be honest and tell you I haven't seen it yet, but someone in the chat wrote spicy. So as a romance novel enthusiast, it sounds like a movie that's right up my alley. So appreciate you sharing that. I did have two quick questions come in for you, Bo. And the first question is, one of the things that you were really clear about is that, school wasn't perhaps your forte, and it isn't for everyone. And I think there's so much pressure on a lot of younger folks that you need that master's degree, or you need that bachelor's degree, or even a high school degree in order to be successful anymore. What advice do you have for overcoming some of those challenges associated with maybe not finding your passion in traditional schooling?
That's a great question. As I said, I wasn't a good student. I got out of high school and I ended up taking a couple of years of college, but I have no degrees. And I ended up taking a correspondence course in accounting. And by the time I finished the second book, I started my own accounting business. But I'm just ordinary, but I just always worked and watched for opportunities. And over the years, I hired a lot of individuals. And when I would look at a resume, I looked at what they had done, because that told me something about what they could do for me. And I think it's all about, as I speak with students sometimes in college and university environments, I always let them know that, you're going to end up with a piece of paper when you're finished with your schooling, whether it's high school, college, tech degree, whatever. You're going to have a piece of paper, but it's going to be meaningless if you can't produce. You've got to come to understand how to make something happen, how to make things happen. That's what it's all about. And I brought a number of individuals onto my team over the years that either didn't have college or were just out of college, and put them into positions where they received, they had a good paying position, high compensation, and lots of opportunity. So follow the passion.
Follow the passion for sure. All right. And final question for you. We have a lot of conversation around your book. People are looking for it. What's its name and where can we find it?
It's The Sweet Spot. If you look up The Sweet Spot on Amazon or on Google, you'll find it. And it's under my, just Google The Sweet Spot, Bo Picklesheimer, and you should be able to find it.
Well, thank you so much, Bo. We really appreciate it. And Bo's session really does conclude today's Next Gen Summit. I can't believe we are saying it, but here we have the final poll of all of our May Next Gen Summit. And this one, we just want to know, are you coming back? We have a summit coming up in October. It's part 2 of what we're doing here today, looking at your professional development opportunities and the skills you need to get ahead in your career. So make sure you check out that. I also promise I won't be mad if you can't make it. I get it. Things happen. However, I do have 5 quick things I want to leave you with today. And the first is you're exactly where you need to be at this moment. It can be really hard to enjoy the space between where you are and where you want to go, but try and keep in mind, and I think our panel really did a great job of articulating this, that the journey is just as important as your final destination, and you are all on a wonderful journey right now. Secondly, the government needs you, like really, really needs you. It needs people like you who will shape and transform our nation for the better. And we really appreciate that you are out there doing that work. Next, please trust yourself. I know there were a lot of sessions on imposter syndrome and how to have critical conversations, but you know so much and your voice matters, and it matters a lot in what we're talking about now and going forward. So please use your voice and use your voice in a way to make our government even better than it already is. Also remember that you are strong, that you are powerful, and that you are capable, and don't let anybody ever tell you otherwise. And finally, you've got this. You've survived shutdowns, political uncertainties, and now a pandemic, and you are smarter for it. So here's to the best for making the remainder of 2023 as successful as possible. As I mentioned before, the final poll is up right now. If you are interested in registering for the summit, it's free, just like it is here today. The link to register is in the resource list, so make sure you check that out. Also, don't forget to nominate all of your colleagues for the Next Gen Public Service Awards. We want to honor the incredible work that you do. So please, please, please put your nominations in early and often. You can nominate more than one person, I promise. So please take a look at that. And before I go, I need to thank a few folks. First up on our thank you list is our Next Gen Partner Alliance. We wouldn't be able to put on this summit without them. So thank you to their generous support. Blue Cross Blue Shield, American University School of Public Affairs, and Code for America. They made this summit a reality. So thank you so much for doing that. And I also want to take a second and thank our entire GovLoop team. It's not just me by any means putting on these summits. NextGen is only possible through the collective efforts of this team. Here's a laundry list of names. Just know they all matter. Maddie, John, Leah, Karina, Jessica, Eric, Casey, Caitlin, Blake, Callista, Andrew, Julia, Candace, Kelly, Lauren, Megan, Mark, Doug, and Susan. Thank you to the entire GovLoop team for making NextGen a reality. From all of us to all of you, go out, do good work, and we'll see you at our next summit. Bye. On behalf of NextGen and GovLoop, thank you so much for joining us. And the great news is that if you enjoyed today's professional development training, well, we're doing it again. Come October 25th, we are going to be doing part 2 of our NextGen Summit. So if you're interested in registering for that, registration is now open. In the meantime, though, you can nominate one of your colleagues or your teammates for our NextGen Public Service Awards. We are really looking to highlight the tremendous work that government employees do, and we'd love to have your nomination. I also want to take a moment and say how thankful we are for the public service work that you do every day. Your work matters, you matter, and we are eternally grateful for all that you do. Go out and continue to do great work, and we'll see you this fall.